Meeting of August 4th. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:10. And we're going to begin with the adoption of the special council meeting agenda. Someone move? If there is nothing, okay. Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. So I'd like to welcome a delegation to our council meeting, Debbie Stesic, who is a citizen of High Level. She is here to talk about the the petition she has posted on Facebook and any community planning that we may be thinking about. So Debbie, if you could come forward.
Madam Mayor, McAteer, and Council, and everybody else in attendance. You all have a copy of my letter. Please sit. Oh, okay, thank you. So formal. So you have a copy of my letter. I could review it with everybody if you like, or just discuss about how this all came to be. So I was a long-term resident of High Level, moved here as a young nurse in '81, so I've been here many years. And this pandemic, of course, it's impacted all of us, financially, emotionally, in all aspects of our life. And with the rising numbers in the county, it's very concerning that some people are not choosing to follow the public health guidelines. So that's how this letter came to be, and my proposal to recommend that High Level implement a mandatory masking policy. So out of care for everybody in our communities, but also for our livelihood too. So most of us had to close for 2 months or longer. We cannot afford to go back to that. So that's basically how it came to be. And then to get feedback from everybody, I put a petition out there because I couldn't really go around to everybody and sit down and have coffee and discuss what they felt about masking bylaw. So I got lots of feedback, phone calls, texts, messages from email, people popping in just telling me that they want a masking up bylaw too to help reduce the risk of transmission of COVID-19, which is a very dangerous virus. We know that. So the petition, the results, 1,203 people signed it, and it was over a period of about 2 weeks. Some problems with the petition. I noticed some people that live in this region didn't put High Level. In fact, some people put Edmonton, Toronto, so it's kind of hard to say how many people signed it from our county, but I would say over 300 for sure. 300 for sure. If I would have, went door to door and knocked on all the businesses, I think probably 90% of the businesses in High Level would support a masking up bylaw. So if you look at the cost of a mask and you look at the consequences if we don't take action in the town of High Level, these numbers could skyrocket. I'm not sure if you've seen the numbers today, but there's 167 cases total. And from last Friday, that's up 19. Yes, the recovery side went up, but we have 19 new cases since Friday. It's alarming. And then to see what's on social media and some of the comments from some individuals in the county, they discount wearing a mask altogether. They see it as a sign of weakness, and that to me is just very disturbing. So the council and mayor, of course, administration, you guys have a chance here to take action and make it safer for everybody in our community, because we are the hub. We know that lots of people come to High Level to do business, visit family, So we've got to do something because the numbers are not going down, they're going up. Now, we just had a long weekend. What are those numbers going to be 2 weeks from now? The numbers are going to skyrocket even more. We know that. So it's very concerning. And that's why I wrote you the letter and talked to lots of people in High Level, but also from all the reserves in this area. They all support a masking up policy. So to me, if we don't do something, it's just going to progressively get worse.
So have you talked to a lot of the businesses in our community, Debbie?
Yes, I did phone some, not all of them, but I did phone some of them. And some of them wanted to come to the meeting, but had other commitments tonight. Sylvia Kennedy was supposed to join us, but she had a showing. I talked to Sherry Matthews from Tradition. She supports it 100%. Like everybody I've talked to in the business community, I haven't had anybody say they don't want to mask up. It's been overwhelming support, people that I've talked to. Also in my own business, when I first reopened May 1st, I guess it was a small opening, a soft opening, I called it. I had masking up in the classroom as optional, hand sanitizers at every workstation. Had to change my whole format to my business. And since then, since the pandemic, the numbers are going up here. I put plexiglass in. It's mandatory masking in the classroom now, and not one person has complained to me that they don't want to mask up. And in fact, when they do CPR, they have to wear a face shield too. And everybody's been really supportive of it. Not one person has said, I ain't doing it, or left. So, plus I do temperature checks.
So what would you suggest to those business owners that have people coming in there that say, well, I can't afford a mask?
It's $3 to get a homemade mask. What do we spend on movies over a year?
I get it, but yeah. I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric out there, that the business should have to supply the masks if they're demanding this. So what would you suggest?
Well, I'm providing masks to all my customers, and I know there's probably some folks that can't afford to do that. I look at the consequence of not masking up, and I just built it into my cost of doing business. Now, you can buy a box of 50 masks, the non-surgical at Costco for roughly $32. And likewise, the Canadian Red Cross sells them on their website. So, I don't know, I just can't swallow that somebody cannot afford to buy a mask or get a homemade mask. Deb Sewing in High Level, she does beautiful masks, $3 for all ages.
On that same pathway, this is going to put a lot of pressure if we put a bylaw in on our peace officers. Do you believe that the store personnel will ask people to leave if they don't have masks on?
I can't speak for each business owner, but I know I have a screening station right at the door, so your temperature is checked. I review a memorandum of wellness, so I go over all the critical points on the memorandum, and they actually have to sign it. And I've only had one person that since May that I had to turn away because they had a low-grade fever. Yeah. I'm also asking my customers if they get sick down the road within that 2-week window, if they would mind just shooting me a text or an email. And everybody's been so good about it. Now, I see the flip side of that with enforcement, but do you have to give everybody a fine that's not masked up? No, you wouldn't. You would give your peace officers flexibility there. That's what I think.
Well, from where I'm coming from is, I would rather see the store, the personnel in the store turn the people away and say, this is why.
Yeah.
Because our peace officers can't be everywhere
all
for
the
sure,
time. For sure. I think each business would have to deal with it independently, just like I am. Okay. So when I'm a one-man show, my training manager works out of home in Ontario, and it works perfect for us. But I am the first point of contact in my business. So I'm doing both. Yeah. So I hope you really consider it. And if I would have had more time, it's kind of an urgent matter. If I would have had more time, I would have did more research, locally.
Well, we appreciate you coming tonight. And Councillor Jessamine has a question.
Yeah, just the petition here. How did you receive these, or how did you collect these names?
So you go on to change.org, I believe it's called. I just Googled how to do a petition, if you want me to be honest. I had never done one in my life, so you go to this site and you write down what it is you're trying to achieve, and then people go on there and they sign it if they agree with it. So through social media, I just kept posting the link.
So you believe that you have over 300?
Yeah, so what I did, I went through it real quick today, and,
Just went through it real quick and I won't.
yeah, and I put check marks on my copy at home. So that's in the area. So I included, like Paddle Prairie, and if somebody's from Calgary, basically Alberta is what I counted. But I know, Sturdy Doll, who I know very well from Rainbow Lake, hi Sturdy, if you're watching, he put down Edmonton. So this is what I'm saying, there's probably names here, people that didn't put their real location down.
Just for future petitions, they follow a particular pattern when it's a municipal petition.
Oh,
We would discount anybody that was out of the municipal.
out of the county.
No, out of the town of High Level.
Oh,
Because we're putting a bylaw in for the people of High Level.
okay, so I didn't just count the high level names, I counted Alberta.
No. But I've heard.
I'm sure you've all heard, I'm sure you've all heard.
Yes.
Like I said, everybody I've talked to in the last 2 weeks, and even prior to me starting this, people were approaching me, Deb, you do something about this, you know.
Any letters or anything of support from all these businesses that?
No, but I could get them. Yeah, I could get them if you like. I have a few people with me here tonight. So Monica's here, and Sylvia was to be here, but she had a showing, so she's gotta make a living, so.
Well, and we have a business owner on council that can
Yeah.
probably speak to it as well.
I can make a few comments,
Yes.
actually. So,
Please.
as you're probably aware, we've taken fairly strict measures at the drugstore.
Yes, you have, so.
And we struggled with how to enforce something that, you know, you're almost not sure if it is really enforceable, but because it's a private business, we also have our staff put in position where they have to make judgment calls on people and all this and that. So we took a stricter measure and said, temperature checks, mask, and hand sanitizing, all those three things. And if somebody doesn't comply, or if their temperature's high, and we have specifics on what to look for, it's not that we don't grant them access, they just can't come further and wander around the business. So we'll come up and still serve them, or we'll bring things out to their car. So we kind of taken this approach where we've enforced it. So I'm with you on the importance of it. And if it were a bylaw or a policy in town, I would support it because we're already doing that anyways. And that being said, when I go out now, I generally put mine on too because I don't want to do it in my own place of business and then not when I'm out
That's right.
of town. So I understand the importance, but I think what it really comes down to is that enforcement of it. And like, who does that? How do you actually do that? Like, do you try to enforce individuals, businesses, everybody, or maybe do you just try to enforce it on the businesses? Because if you have a business where the business doesn't care and their clientele doesn't care, it's not going to work, and then we don't achieve that goal. So, do you just maybe put enforcement on if this were to pass? Do you put the enforcement just on the business?
Should be public places, I would think, like, including businesses. Jan, you've done a terrific job, and I get lots of feedback from people on how well set up you are, compared to other businesses.
Yeah, with the number of people we see, like, I would say the complaints are fairly small. So it's not, it's not an infringement on our human rights. It works. So I just still would have to have that lengthy discussion on how do you make it enforceable, I guess.
Well, I know some of the cities have imposed a fine, but do they give a fine for every violation? Probably not, because you're gonna have to look at that particular situation
Just the
and then decide from there.
spot check. I believe the school division, or the Alberta, within the province of Alberta, are adding a policy,
4 to 12 today, yeah.
sorry, Alberta Education is, yeah, sorry, not just our school, but, so, you know, it's not a crazy concept whatsoever, to, you know, to be looking at this, but these things are only as good as the ability to
Enforce.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues so far,
Yeah.
but you have a lot more traffic per day than I do in the classroom, so.
And if everybody just took it seriously, then you don't need a bylaw. But that's the problem, I guess, is that not enough, or it's felt that not enough are taking it serious enough.
So that's the flip side of that, Jan, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually called, the mayor about this. So there was a business in town where it was mandated that you had to mask up, and they weren't masking up at all. And it was alarming, because they were in such close contact with their customers. So I contacted, I guess it would be environmental health, the health inspector, and they don't have anybody here full time right now. They're sending people back and forth, but basically because there's no bylaw in the town high level, I understood that even the peace officers couldn't do anything about. That was kind of one of the driving forces behind my letter too, because I thought, we're business owners, we're supposed to protect our customers, our families, all of that. And here we have a business in high level that's violating the public health orders, and nobody's taking any action. I was just shocked by that. And there's traffic coming and going, day in, day out. I don't want to say the business, but it was very alarming. And I went online, I used all the appropriate channels, and it took about a month before anybody visited that business. Actually, it was longer than that. It was probably closer to 8 weeks. I had to actually phone about 10 times before somebody actually visited that business. So I was very upset because the numbers are going up. And I bet you everybody in this room has got somebody in their circle that's got pre-existing medical conditions, or they're in the high-risk category because of age. And this, to me, was shocking, that this business was not even following the Public Health Act. So the bylaw would take care of that, in my opinion.
The bylaw, as long as we can enforce it.
Yeah, that's something that you good folks are gonna have to work out with your administration.
Yes. Did anybody else have questions? Oh, Terry?
No. You know, I'm just concerned about businesses, you know, I can appreciate yours, you know, people come into class in the morning, do the presentation, and it's a one-time thing, but you have someone that has a lot of walking and traffic. I'm thinking, you know, a service station, a convenience store, you know, a bargain shop, something like that, that if the people don't have the mask, and the store has to provide it, that is a cost for them. There's also going to be the cost for, you know, having someone at the door to ensure that they have masks coming in. It's going to be an additional cost for every business. And I guess that would be my concern.
Jan sells his masks at $1 a piece, cost recovery.
And I think that's a great idea.
We were, and we tried giving them away, and it was an excessive dollar amount daily, and so it wasn't sustainable. So, yeah, it works, but you're right. There's extra labor involved in watching that door. We basically have 1 to 2 people now staffed sitting at a desk at the front of the store.
You're creating employment, Jen.
But like you
Good
said,
for the economy.
but some of these things are costs of doing business. We were very fortunate enough to not have to close at all, and I'm very grateful for that. So, you know, so those are the things we're adding. But yeah, there would probably be, that would be your business owner's concern with helping to ensure that they enforce a rule internally, because the business doesn't want to get fined either then. Like even if you're trying your best, but you know, when the bylaw officer comes by and sees, you know, an infraction, and so it is a lot of extra work, but you know, I would personally.
But we all want to keep working and we
Yeah.
want a healthy population, and that was the driving force behind all of this. And I knew there was a loophole in the fact that we were missing a bylaw in high level, so you couldn't really take a lot of action. So
that meant the health, say health inspectors and like a health mandate then can only be enforced if there's a bylaw to also support.
well, the peace officers in the town of high level is what I understood could not go into that business. They could go in and have a friendly chat, but they couldn't impose any penalties.
But the health inspectors should have been able to.
The health
As
inspector,
soon as they lifted the health order, there were no more fines.
yeah,
Right.
So nobody was enforcing them. Police were used to enforce them in the beginning, but when they lifted the order, that was it.
Yeah.
So just because,
Other question is public place. So in a business, inside the business, that's not a public place. That's
Yes.
privately owned.
but it's where the public goes.
So if we put in this bylaw, we still can't, can we force, can we, the owner is when people are inside their business?
Yeah, because it's a bylaw.
As long as the door is unlocked, it would be a public place.
Okay,
If it's by appointment only and the door was locked,
okay.
it would be different. But if the door is accessible to the public.
And those places don't have to wear masks in most of the places where they've made it mandatory.
Makes sense.
and the other thing was with my business too, I have a large group of people that come from all over the region. So I'm not just teaching people from the town of high level. All this area, including the Northwest Territories, until they close their border, of course, are coming into my place of business. So I wanted to be sure that I was doing everything I could to keep them safe as well as my family. And if you talk to any business owner in this town right now, they cannot afford to close for 2 months. If I have to close for 2 more months, I am not going to reopen. I'm going to go fishing. I've already got that plan with my husband. Yeah. So that's another reason for this bylaw, in my mind, is for our economy in the town of high level. Because even Sylvia, she can't be here tonight, but she said if she had to close her business a second time, she told me she didn't know if she could, survive another closure.
And I think it's important as well to protect those around you.
Yeah, masking up, it's a small price, it's a small expectation. We can all do it, unless there's a reason we can't, like, respiratory illness that doesn't allow you to mask up. You can have those exceptions in your bylaw, for folks that can't mask up, and the very young, of course.
Okay, Council, if you do not have any more questions, I'd like to thank you for doing your presentation,
Thank you.
and we will seriously be looking at this.
Okay, so good luck.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
You got that.
Okay, so, the minutes, has everyone read the minutes? Could I have someone, yes? Councillor Jessamine makes the motion to approve. All those in favor? Carried. So on to this delegation business. So council did, in your last package, pass around a face covering bylaw. So that you, yes? Oh, you're looking at me like you want to say something. So they did pass around a face covering bylaw for something for us to look at. And I will ask Clark to proceed.
So we plagiarized liberally from the city of Calgary, other than we took out the public transit portion of it, which is not applicable in the town level. There is still public transport, but that would be taxes, is what that would refer to. So that's there for the council's review. Our concerns as administration, we will follow the direction given by council, but our concerns as administration is the enforcement aspect of it. We are at the height of our summer enforcement season downtown, but we just throw that out for discussion. So there's 2 points. There is the bylaw there, if the council wanted to pull that out and put that forward for your August 24th meeting. And then, I guess, if council is considering this, I can let Director Schmidt address that too, but we would like some direction on enforcement.
So what is council's position? Starting with Mr. Jessamine. No, I'm kidding. What is council? Don't have to start with you.
I think this puts an onerous burden on lots of businesses in terms of costs. I agree, it would be a great idea, but, I think we have to leave it voluntary for our purposes. Yes, people come in the door, we ask the questions. Some wear masks, some don't. There is some physical distancing, but we are, across the table, things like that, but, what happens if someone comes in and they refuse to put it on? Are you going to deny them service because of that? And for, let's say you have someone coming in to buy a dollar item, are they going to spend $1 at the door to come in? They may not have those resources. I just think it's going to certainly affect a significant part of our at-risk population.
Done? I'm just gonna say, where the heck can you get something for $1?
Not many places. There's lots of masks, I think, that are more than $1. And, I'm not sure what access to things like this some businesses may have, but, for a business, Jared, Councilor Welke gave a good example, that, he basically has 2 staff now that are doing that, and he looks at it as a cost of business. If you have someone who's selling dollar items to begin with, to have their at the door, plus the cost of that. I would hope that voluntarily people that are at risk would wear them without being forced to do so.
They're not. Some are, some are not.
Some are.
So I mean, this is the reason that we have been asked for help from the community, I guess, per se, is because a lot of people that are wearing masks are afraid of those that are not. So I totally agree with the bylaw. Like, I talked to the medical health person, said, you will stop the spread more by wearing masks than anything else.
That is what the provincial government mandated.
Exactly.
Take it away from you.
Because they've thrown it to the municipalities to be the bad guys, and for the municipalities to debate and argue amongst themselves. Like, I think it was a very chicken move by the provincial government to do that. But I am telling you that I spent 2 hours on the phone with our Northwest Health person, doctor, who said that High Level is doing a very good job by all the things that they have in place, and to stop the spread further, it would be to wear masks. And just to let you know, we now have 6 people in the Heimstead Lodge that have COVID, and 4 more in isolation that are testing.
We're not stopping that. So.
Well, I know, but I'm just telling you what masks can do.
Is it possible, excuse me, that we might see something more provincially? I mean, if they're doing it with Alberta Education, that's pretty provincial.
I don't think so, I just threw it, I think they threw it back on the municipalities. You want to open up your businesses, you put in the safety precautions.
I think the public will, I mean, as it, it becomes more normal, I think the public would probably warm up to it more too, especially when, if the school's open and you can't go into school, and the kids and the teachers and the staff and everyone, like, it's a, you know, to participate in the school system at all, you're wearing a mask, that says a lot for, this is just something we have to do in public. I mean, I'm behind it as well. Just, you know, having that conversation with the minister, like, how do you enforce it? How do you,
Well,
or you
there would be some responsibility, I would say, on the place of business to say, hey, you have to wear a mask in this business. And if they say, well, I don't have one, then you say, well, I have one for $1 here.
yeah.
Or here you have it this time, next time you'll have to have one to come in.
So place the real responsibility on the business owners for fines or fear fines.
Oh. Well, I wouldn't put the fines on them. I would say we have 2 peace officers and 1 bylaw enforcer, or 1 bylaw person. That's 3 people. We start policing the habitual mask not wearers.
Right.
I mean, after about 2 or 3, maybe a week, people would start wearing masks. That's what we have peace officers for, is to make sure our bylaws are being followed in community standards and.
So sort of just frequent reminders
Yeah.
that there's a bylaw.
Yes, and we
Yeah.
put up big signs on the door. There's signs in Grimshaw that says, you don't have a mask, don't come in my store. And so the businesses have taken it upon themselves to say, hey, this is a respect thing, please leave. I know it puts a lot of responsibility on store owners, but on the same token, not many of them want to shut down again.
Mhm.
Yes,
I'm still just a little nervous. I wish there had been more support if there was that many store owners that were strongly for it to come out. This was a perfect opportunity for them to come.
but we can pass a first reading, and the administration can go out and get that information. It's not that hard. There's only like, 67 businesses in town? I mean, we went around and talked to them all with our safety person, so surely we can go around and ask them if they're in favor of this, and yes.
Are we monitoring the live feedback as we speak right now? Is there a lot of engagement?
There actually is quite a lot.
Mhm.
Both sides.
So that's a lot of data, hopefully will be showing up as we speak.
So, yeah,
Madam Mayor, if I may make a suggestion, if it's not council's intention to pass the bylaw tonight, but rather gather public input, if there's no concerns, or if the council wants to change the bylaw we put forward or present as a draft, we can then put that out to the public for review and bring that back to the August 24th meeting. According to your rules of procedure, you can't do a first reading, but that doesn't stop you from advertising the bylaws that show the percentage.
we can't do the first reading at our special council meeting. We're in the public.
You don't actually have a bylaw on your agenda.
Good trick.
It wasn't meant to be a trick. Either way, you can still get it out to the public, which I'm assuming council would have done anyway, is get public feedback.
Well, mine to say first reading, then, like, we never moved it from our committee of whole to,
But your procedure for committee of whole is resolution report.
so I just want council to remember, as you're thinking through this, that the town of High Level is sort of the regional place for not just us, but for people from Paddle Prairie, from all 3 reserves, and if wearing a mask can help contain the virus from entering any of these places where it could be very crucial, as it did enter our long-term living facility now, I think we really need to think about that, and not just ourselves and what it will cost to the business, because it'll be a heck of a lot bigger cost if they're forced to shut down again. Maybe not for every business, but there were a lot of businesses that had to shut down. We've looked at our budget for, not exactly our budget, but our comparisons in our, the airport, in the swimming pool, in the rec centers. We've seen how we've lost revenues. I would hate to go through a second wave where things get shut down. So if wearing something as simple as wearing a mask could prevent that, I would hope that we would see that that's important to us. And I would welcome a lot of feedback from businesses, because they're the people that are going to have to be the front lines for this, as well as our staff at our facilities. So that's just my caution. CAO.
It is council's choice.
So we will preview the, and this will be on our agenda for August 24th as a bylaw.
Council wishes to place that on the agenda.
Council? Well, I'm asking everybody's opinion. Do you want that back on the agenda?
Yes.
Well, I agree to have it back on the agenda. I agree that we need public input. I'm prepared to move that we direct administration in the interim to seek out public and business input on the draft that administration has prepared and bring it back to a discussion at the August 24th meeting.
Any other discussion? Okay. So move the delegation business, Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried.
Sorry, just a question for administration, because this is a special meeting. Did we comply with the advertising requirements in time, or did we have to get unanimous consent to hold a special meeting?
I think we complied with the advertising requirements for this meeting.
For the special meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, administrative, are we doing this report? Are you doing the report tonight? I thought this wasn't a regular council meeting, that's why I never handed in my mayor's report.
No. Madam Mayor, we just wanted to give you that half-year report.
Oh, okay.
For the plan. So as it's a special meeting, it has to be what's on the agenda that was put forward. But I will also note that this is the last report Ms. Saint will be giving us.
Good evening. Yeah, I wanted to include this because it's quite a large report. It's my quarterly report. So I did all of the in-depth variance analysis that I know you like, Madam Mayor. So if anybody has any questions, I can certainly try to answer them, or the director just wanted to answer.
Any questions of Ms. Zanko? Yes.
Our disaster recovery, are we completely up? The submission of agency report?
No, we are still working on it. Two of the projects will be submitted before I leave, and a lot of the mutual aid we still are working on. We haven't developed this project yet. AMA is assisting us with ensuring that the numbers are correct that we are paying. So that will continue after I leave. But we are getting closer and closer.
And we did get a letter from,
From the minister in response to the county of Grand Prairie's concern.
Yes.
So the minister of municipal affairs did recognize that some municipal affairs that are it's their, the holdup is on their end because they're reconciling invoices.
and the reeve of Grand Prairie never was in doubt that it wasn't our mistake, it was their mistake.
letters.
So maybe we read into something that wasn't.
Maybe something wasn't clearly written, but
Yeah.
yes, fair enough.
So seeing no questions, can I have someone move Ms. Zanko's report? Councillor Morgan. All in favor? Carried. Could you please, Ms. Zanko, have your successor do his report, his or her reports the same way? It's been a pleasure to read your report. Old business, replacement borrowing bylaw.
Madam Mayor, I'll give this to George as well.
So this is the Station 1 replacement borrowing bylaw that you had seen on July 6th. So you had passed the first reading at that point, and administration has advertised this borrowing bylaw in the local newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. We have not heard any negative responses on it. So we are bringing it back for a second and third reading. If there are any questions, I can certainly try to answer them.
Council, do you have any questions, new information you'd like to bring forward? Okay, then I will ask someone to give second reading.
I'll give the second reading.
Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. And could I ask someone to give third reading, please?
I'll give third reading.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. Capital project at the museum is 12-2.
Madam Mayor, we did replace the RFP in your package. We had a draft one that snuck its way in by accident. But I'll defer that to Director Walsh to address.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So, administration came to council back in March 16th, and we discussed the Sandy dump and some of the options. At that time, I was to come back with options for locations at the museum, as well as looking at 94th Street, where we currently have the water fill station. In addition, with more discussions with the Director of Operations, we felt that we should also look at the location on Gateway Boulevard, our big extension there. Looking at the sanitation area there, if we're able to remediate that would be a great location because the RVs could come right off the highway onto that extension. So I've put the 3 proposals in here. With the museum, there also is the Urban Systems has their conceptual diagrams that are attached there that show the different areas where we could possibly have the sandy dump, how the drive-throughs would work. The ones that they suggest on the 2 far sides are actually aren't our properties. We have to get permission to use those. And the administration is still suggesting that we don't get a museum necessarily the ideal location for a sandy dump. Looking at our current site, that would be a good alternative. Director of Operations was saying that he was looking at doing some remediation there anyways next year. So if we were going to go that route, we'd be better off moving this to next year and having this as part of that. Part of the road there needs to be filled with heavy traffic. So we could discuss that a bit more.
Sure, so when we looked at just the paving of the area where the sandy dump would be located, there's a lot more remediation that needs to be done for the whole area. So if we put a patch there just for that area, we'd be readdressing it next year. We were planning on updating the asphalt in the whole area. If that is a site you're seriously looking at or you wish us to maintain, we did come into some extra funding through the gas tax fund. We could look at that project this year, completing that whole site or deferring it to next year. Alternately, we look for an alternate site within the community that would be good for a sandy dump, and that's why you would see Gateway as one of the options. The initial intent was to put a sandy dump in the area of the actual landfill if we weren't remediating the landfill. We're not sure if that's even a viable project in the next 5 or 10 years to remediate that area. If not, I still believe that would be a good location for a sandy dump of equivalent cost of setting up or rebuilding the existing.
So you're saying now remediating the original site is not a good idea?
It's an idea, but I think if we're not going to if we're not going to remediate the landfill as part of the Gateway project, and that property is going to sit vacant for quite a period, that would be a better site for access in and out for campers. We could have a dual lane as well as a central island, but right now it's where it sits, it only facilitates one, maybe 2 vehicles maybe. So it is an option. If anything, we're cautious to make a decision right now. If you do want to proceed at the current site, I would like to do the whole thing at once instead of just doing a patch and then coming back next year and reworking it. Like I said, we do have the funds for that. I personally think the Gateway option is probably the better option. If you look at one of the Gateway drawings, you'll see the square portion where the landfill land is located. We could put a lane that goes in and out off the Gateway, which would have an island in the middle, pavement pad for where you unload and gravel in and out. Now, if in 5 or 10 years or sooner you wish to completely dig that landfill out, and we do get some provincial assistance on that project, then we would have to locate at that time, and this value would be lost. But that might be included as part of that project at that time to relocate it to somewhere else. It all depends on the future use of that landfill, and this would be a good project for that area, as well as parking for other works. Again, it boils down to whether or not that landfill is ever going to be relocated or removed and remediated.
Councillor Justin?
The time frame for if we could go with Gateway, how long do you have to do road construction there and develop, correct?
Yes, so we are planning on starting Gateway soon. We're in the process of doing our tender documents. So by the end of this month, it could be included as part of the Gateway project. And because it is unplanned, this work is unplanned within our budget, it qualifies for the additional, not STIP, but municipal sustainability funds that we have recently got. That project would fall under there, and we'll be able to do that project completely funded.
I don't think council knows about the additional money,
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
so it would be difficult for them to make a decision.
Madam Mayor, if you'd like, I could quickly bring them up today, because this all happened at the end of last week. Municipal Affairs did announce the Municipal Sustainability Program, and the provincial government put in $500 million for municipal projects. We had in a previous meeting, we had approved the list of unfunded capital projects, which included the remediation of the industrial roads, the removal of the old landfills between Highway 35 and Highway 58, as well as a couple of other projects. The government decided to distribute the funds on a per capita basis through the gas tax formula, and the town received $228,000. Our smallest project was $1.5 million. So and what's interesting is it appears as though we have to allocate funding to a project we have not planned in any portion for this year. So there is a couple of things we've been looking at, but the sanding dump would be a project that we could use that funding for. And we would be able to likely do the project without money.
And I do believe council has been unaware, except those that were at the meeting, that we also received our STIP funding for
For Gateway Boulevard.
$389,000 to pave that road. I agree with you that that we should put the sandy dump, that seems the perfect place for it, but it would have to meet beautification standards in order to go there. Seems it's gonna be right off of our highway.
So, Madam Mayor, within that project also, we did have a contingency, which this could work towards also, to remove the overburden on the landfill, that pile of debris, and we could plant that area of grass. And that would clean up part of that landfill as part of this project. Again, it's really a quick idea that we kind of wanted to get talked about now, so we can look at potential engineering as part of the tender package as an option to put that in. We are starting the final engineering and tender documents for Gateway right now. And the additional gas tax fund that was allocated for 228 has to be decided by October 31st this year, and we have to let them know what we're doing. We can carry the cost over to next year if we don't get completed, but they want to know right away what we're planning on spending it on.
And part of this was too, we were doing, the front of the museum was one of the other capital projects, was making it accessible, looking at, fixing up the pavement, doing overlay. So, it would be a little not very, forward thinking if I was to redo the asphalt and dig it up next year and put in sand down. So, we kind of wanted to have an idea if we're going to be looking at the Gateway extension, or if that doesn't work out, we're looking at our current at 94, that I would need to know that now, to see if, again, some of these funds could be used to do the entire, kind of museum with, overlay. Yeah. Everything's kind of, everything's kind of tied in, that's why it's, not quite as straightforward.
So Madam Mayor, the pavement at the estimates on the initial paving at the museum came in quite high. And what she's suggesting is if we use this funding to do the sanding dump over on Gateway, that frees up the 70,000 that was kind of somewhat allocated for doing the museum to enhance the paving project over there and do more work.
Okay, my thought process on this is we're wanting to attract tourists to this town, and tourists are people that pull trailers and are requiring a sandy dump. So the logical place to put the sandy dump is where they can get the most information when they come into town, and that's the museum. So we put the sandy dump a mile away from the museum. They come in and dump their sewer, refill their water tanks, and they're gone from town because they have no place to get the information. They have to go out of their way to get the information for the town and the surrounding area. And that's why I think it should be at the museum.
Yep, I do too, but it looks like we were wanting to move it, so. Yes.
So do we have to, if we're looking at something different, do we have to rescind the previous motion? Because council years ago approved option B at the museum.
Years ago.
It was 2 years ago.
Couple of years ago.
Deputy Mayor McLeod was still on council, so it's 4 years ago.
Oh. I believe the motion in March was to bring options back to council, for the current projects in this year.
I'm just referring back to motions from years ago where I think Councilor Morgan and myself were surprised when this even came back because council had already made the decision.
Well, the recommendation, reads that council amend the current scope and location of the Sandon capital project, etc. to the Gateway location. So I was hoping that was taken care of, the previous direction that was provided.
Administratively, I'm just asking the question because I think there's a current motion out there to put it in the museum.
I believe what?
Sorry, it wouldn't hurt to rescind that motion just to clean up the record. If council is to change the position on site.
Well, there seems to be some, what's your feelings? Like, to walk this back, the reason that we wanted the sandy dump there was for that exact reason, so that people were going through and They were going to visit the museum because they had to go and empty their vehicles or whatever they're called, their RVs anyways. So, you know, the family goes into the museum and, like Brent says, gets all the information, where they may go, where they may stay. That was the idea of it. So I'm in agreement. I just thought that we couldn't do this. It was impossible, and now we were gonna move to Gateway instead.
Mayor, these are just options that we were asked to look at, what that potentially would be. If you're happy with the development at the museum, then
Why would you be asked for options when there was a council resolution?
because of the location and the future development. And it is a fairly hard place to get in and out of, and parking. So it was discussed and we brought back options. So we had three choices, existing location, we were asked to look at the truck bill, and as part of that, we looked at a new location if the museum isn't the one we want to proceed with.
So the museum, locations are attached to this report, front of the design.
Yeah.
And two different areas where you can park, so by all means, that's one of the recommendations in here, if council wishes to choose one of those and have that developed as well.
So again, my memory is that we had already picked option B, even though that wasn't the ideal location. From a cost perspective, it was the cheapest to tie in because of the proximity to existing water and sewer lines. Don't get me wrong, I think that the Gateway idea, at least for me, not being someone who pulls a trailer, but I think the dual lane and the ease of in and out would be desirable to people. I agree with Councillor Anderson that that doesn't suit the purpose for which it's intended, but I think we have to look at who the user of the facility is going to be.
Councillor Jessamine.
My family, we do have a trailer, and I mean, we've been all over the problems, not every information center has a sandy dump attached to it. We are a small town, and it is fairly close, it is fairly good access in and out, so I mean, you can pull out and hang a left and head back up to the information center, and you can actually see it right from the sandy dump, so I don't think it'd be a huge hindrance. I like the idea, I think it'd be better, to have that double, you'd have more accessibility for more trailers at once, ease of getting in and out. I like that idea a lot more.
The Gateway. I've never had the luxury of owning a trailer, so I wouldn't know.
And it's so close, you can throw a ball from that almost to the information center.
So do you have to pay to empty into a sandy dump?
There'd be water available as well. Correct. Yeah, and you wouldn't pay for that, like you'd be able to fill up then.
The intent would have a small point operated water.
Oh, okay.
Cost recovery.
Yes.
That would be the only one that I've ever seen. Me too. You'd have to pay for your water.
So we would have non-potable water and wash your hoses, but a water fill station. You can't have a fill station at the same point you're in the sewer dump. So the fill station would be coin operated and the lower pressure wash hose would be at the sandy dump. Just because you can't have them in the same position. So they have to be separated.
So is there a reason you don't have to pay for that service?
It's a attraction to your community.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the sandy dumps typically have free water, and normally it's not considered potable. But you're not supposed to fill off, it's just to wash your hoses.
So, Councillor Morgan, why were you surprised it was back on the
Well,
agenda?
just like Councillor Langford said, we voted and selected B 4 years ago. And we just put off doing it until the funds were available. So when it came back, I was a little taken aback, but because I thought we had already made the decision to put it at the museum. We were just waiting until the funds came available.
So if it was a big cost savings to put it at one or the other, would you be opposed?
don't own the trailer, I'm never gonna use it. I still think putting it in the museum is a better enticement to tourists to get them into the museum. But for ease and convenience, if we put the double name and two people were able to use it, I'd probably go for the convenience portion of it. I do think being able to, multiple people being able to use it is better.
What about costing? Could you get us, or is that pushing things back?
We could look at costing to both. Really, it's a matter of preference. I think if we're gonna put the location at Gateway, it's gonna be more money, because it's gonna be considerably larger for road work. You're gonna have you'll be able to queue 2 or 3 campers in one row. Where here at the museum, you have one. You also have the potential issue of, is the camper gonna be sitting there while families in the museum, or are they gonna park? I haven't looked at any of that, and I don't know about traffic flow on that. Do they leave the sandy dump and park on the side to pick up their family? Or do they sit at the sandy dump while their family's inside? I like the idea of a tracking museum. I'm more concerned with traffic flow from my point of view, from operations point of view. But I think either is viable. It's just they each have their own issues. The Gateway project would be the more volume capable and in and out, slightly more in cost, but completely fundable for sure. It would just not have the attraction of being able to have the museum right there.
So what about the $268,000 unfunded project? Could it not just transfer to the museum as opposed to Gateway?
I'm not sure. It's supposed to be an unfunded project, where the museum project is already funded, right? Or a portion thereof.
Funded but not used.
It's a fine line there.
Okay, but from our list, we have a number of unfunded projects that we could partially do. Duncan Street, across the tracks. Councilman has pointed that out before, like that road's about to fall apart. We could at least do the worst sections of that with that kind of work, you know?
Yes, Mayor, we also have some residual cost left on the Gateway project, potentially. We could use that funds to completely cover that project. And we could also use it to eliminate some of the landfill anyways, to clean that area up as you're coming in. So it can still be allocated to Gateway. I'm not sure how much. I don't think you would have any extra cost at the museum location to put it in. I think it would be very close on what's funded. The pavement cost there to extend the pavement after, you would have that for next year, I guess, because you would want to pave this year after digging through there. So next year you would have to pave that into the parking lot and only pave a portion this year.
285,000 isn't going to pay very much.
228,000.
So 228,000.
I think that's pretty well where we're sitting on the Gateway project. We haven't got all final numbers in.
We could get rid of the museum or the Legion and make our park.
That is also a project. Potentially. That definitely was unfunded.
So I guess what I'm asking you, are we getting more bang for our buck by piling everything on the Gateway Boulevard project than separating it into smaller projects? Because we've now done the pavement into there, we've done the opening up of it to 35, putting a sandy dump in there. What does that get us?
The sandy dump is just a new possibility on the whole project. it doesn't really add or take away from the Gateway Boulevard project. I mean, it might add from a tourism point of view, but from the actual construction of Gateway Boulevard, it won't change anything. It's going to be an additional cost to that or a transfer of that cost. So Gateway can proceed either way. That's not a concern with the Sandy Dump. It was just an option or an opportunity to the rules.
Yes.
I'm actually quite torn because there's good reasons for both. But I was just thinking, with all this new park development and everything by the museum, it's still an excellent place to stop. Why not develop really good pull-through parking for multiple RVs so that you see it when you come into town and you stop there, and then everyone can get out and enjoy the facility, and it would be at that point that you find out where the Sandy Dump is, which is only, a little ways away, so the family can stay, whoever's driving can go do that, but I like the idea that it brings the people into that area, but it still seems like it's really struggling to make it work well, and bottom line, it is a Sandy Dump. Like, do we want that right in front of our museum? I know, like, for drawing the people, yes, but for what it is, these aren't, beautifully clean facilities. You kind of pull up, get the job done, and take off. So, meanwhile, but if you could park your RV for a bit, which is what he's saying too, if you're worried about traffic flow, because if somebody parks their RV at the Sandy Dump and then goes and hangs out in the museum, then how do you manage that? That's just my thought. I love the idea of very visible pull-through parking for large.
So what is the timeline for having to spend this amount of money and for having to decide it goes where?
So the allocation has to be done by October 31st, Madam Mayor, and the spending can be carried over to the end of 2021.
So perhaps we would like to table this to a committee of whole so that we can really look at it again and really hash it out and really decide what is the best depending on costs and what's council.
The only issue with that is if you were about to tender out the Gateway project, this would be part of that tender, would it not?
Madam Mayor, we could tender it out with that as a believable option as well. I would also, as part of the review, review the museum future usage and address maybe your parking as part of this process. The full development, make sure that it's not going to inhibit future development. And like the old Friendship Center site there, that could be your RV parking back here parallel to it too. So maybe as a quick review, look at those things, right? Because if we're gonna be running water and sewer right under that development, so we'll want to make sure that you're not inhibiting that future lot development either, right? That's the portion of the parking lot where you're.
So just as, I know it's not my project, Madam Mayor, but just listening to the discussion and as a, albeit small RV owner, we also think about the usage, right? So probably 50 to 75% of this usage is actually going to be town residents who own RVs, right? So are they really going to be using that opportunity to go to the museum? Probably not. I drop my family off at home, I go dump the RV, I come back and park in my driveway. After we're camping at Hutch Lake or Twin Lakes or wherever you're at. So a lot of the usage is going to be town residents. If you're looking at long-term usable, sandy dump, because, I mean, I agree, you know, large RVs, 40-foot fifth wheels are gonna have a real hard time working into that plan, where if you have a twin lane double lineup, you could queue and dump 2 RVs at the same time. That's one, gonna make our citizens a lot happier, and 2, the tourists are probably gonna rave about it online, about saying, hey, I don't have this great sandy dump, don't forget to stop there and use it. So if we make something unusable, that's just, you know, I don't think we're getting much farther ahead just because we put it in the museum. It's just my thought.
Okay, so back to tabling this to the next COW meeting. Does somebody want to make that motion? Or do you want to vote on the site today?
I'll make the motion to table it to the next council, because I think that we have a lot more discussion.
We talked, I remember, okay, it was talked about, discussed the previous council before, and I remember we had an extensive discussion and review of the plan as well, this group here, so we gotta make a decision and move on this. I'd rather do it tonight, so.
Okay,
The gateway option kind of just presented itself,
yes,
which is.
which is new information.
We've had a good discussion about it.
What's it called?
We don't have a cost on it. So that's new information that we need information about. Because if we're only gonna be paying 70,000, are we gonna allocate that unfunded money to theirs? I mean, these are all things that we don't know at this point. Yes, Councillor Wilkie.
Do we need to rescind the motion?
Well, we would do that after our discussion at COW, if we had to. But people are having their final say. No other discussion?
Well, I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't impact any tendering process. I would hate the Gateway project to be held up over this.
Yes, ma'am, I have no issue with tendering, like I said, we could add that as an option, which would be deletable. We should have a class C estimate, when's the next call?
September.
We should be more than ready by then, probably before construction starts, we should be tendering those options.
So all in favor of tabling it? Carried.
So Madam Mayor, just to be clear, we're looking at 2 options, Gateway and the museum.
Right.
Digging out that resolution.
And, you know, like, bring the old costs, like what it would cost to pave that old Friendship Center parking lot, as close as possible, because those are all gonna be considerations in this.
So I have a question on that. Is it just pave that portion of the parking lot that's already paved? Or do you want us to look, are you still looking at doing something with the old lot in Friendship Center? Do you want to pave that for parking, or you just want to leave that for future development? That's the question.
See, I'm unsure of what we wanna do with it. I'd like to go do a drive-by in a 40-foot motorhome to see what, I'm a tactical type person. Like, I've never been to a sandy dump or through a sandy dump, so it's difficult to make a decision whether, you know, like, you take your family, you don't take your family, like, are we a tourist town, or is it the majority of people in this community that are gonna use it? Yes, it was a very good point that we didn't know anything about.
Mayor, another issue with standing dumps, they tend to be overloaded during long weekends and events. If it's after a weekend, there's a big lineup. For the most part, the standing dump is pretty quiet during the week, but, you know, larger events, long weekends, they can really start backing up.
Okay.
That's another consideration.
And I don't know the difference between a 40-foot motorhome or a 60-foot.
But again, for a tourist attraction, drive-through stalls are what you want. Lots of people can buy them, they can't necessarily back them up. No criticism. But, you know, I think even newer campgrounds are all designed to be drive-through. These are getting to be fairly significant sized units, right? If if we want people to stop, drive-through parking is what they're gonna be looking for.
That's what I need. Yes,
Madam Mayor, before the council votes, if you don't mind, we'll pass the question back to Rick Wall, and just see if that makes her, answers your questions.
Oh, yeah, I'll just do repairs on the parking lot and supply this year and we'll see what happens and then finish it up through September. Possibly see if we can do the traffic study to see if we can finish the parking stuff and then be able to figure out the types of vehicles coming through there and that type of thing too. So, and already we get congested with traffic that we're going to use by, we should look at the other place. Because we have the fruit truck there and get a couple of wood trucks there, no one can even get in there. We're trying to park ourselves, we're all going in different directions, and so it could be also, we need to look at the actual parking setup in the period, to make sure that it's more strategic and it's very clear how to park.
so question, does the fruit truck have to be there or can it be parked elsewhere?
That's the other thing, piece of law, that we deal with that, and another issue as well too, where we actually stipulate on all our permits where they could be parking. And it does, that takes up a lot of room, people coming in. But it also draws people in that go by food and go to the museum. So,
The business license bylaw is another bylaw that we've been to council this winter.
we kind of have a little both in that. No, we did bring back this information along with some cost estimates and between myself and Director of Operations.
All right, all in favor? No. Oh, I thought you said before you called the vote.
Oh, sorry, I just forgot sidetracked by the question, my apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
No question.
Thought we did it, okay, I lost it.
Do you want to read that back to them?
No, you don't need to read that.
No.
Okay, 13.1, the fire guard.
Madam Mayor, could we defer or pass this to Director Schmidt, who can address this issue?
Madam Mayor, I know, council has been, talking, over the past year about, the fire guard or the dozer guard that was put in after the Chuck 8 fire. As council's aware, we did, Forester did the rollback of the guard, and we, did a mulching operation last year to mulch all that material. And this summer, spring and summer, we were kind of looking at this fire guard, trying to understand what the best plan of action is. And we had a lot of internally amongst, Director of Operations, myself, and everybody else about how to do it. We just decided to get Commission Palisade Consulting, who is our Fire Smart consultant. They've done a number of these fire guard rehab projects, and we just asked them, they were up in the Peace region, I said, can you come up and take a look at this, give us a report on what the best course of action is. We have been preparing, we've been talking to FreeUp and all these other groups trying to prepare for trying to access funding to get this done, thinking we're going to be, $250,000 kind of project to get this going. So Murray and Pat from Palisade came up early in July and took a look at the fire guard, and the report is attached. As you can see, we're actually getting rollback of kind of the native species already in some areas of the fire guard, and their opinion, that's listed in the report, is we just seed it. There is some woody debris in some of the areas that are a little bit thicker, and will, that may result next year in a couple of areas that may be slightly patchy that we could address directly at that time, but they feel by far the majority of that fire guard as it sits, because of woody debris, will actually shelter the seed, that if we seed it this fall, we would actually have a really good uptake in the spring after we get a snow cover on it. Regardless of how we manage this project, it's going to be not an instant process to have a park-like area there. It's going to take some time. Their opinion is if we seed it, we let it grow over next year. In the meantime, we manage some of the grow back of, the poplar stands and that kind of stuff that's trying to grow through, which is primarily on the edges because it's actually not growing through the woody debris. The debris is kind of holding that species back. That that we would actually have a good uptake of grasses. They've actually suggested a mix. We feel we can do it within existing budgets. So we have some money set aside in our Car Smart budget for management that we have not used this year. Keith has some money that was already set aside to do kind of a test plot on that fire guard. They've estimated $15,000 to $20,000 to do this project, and we have enough money in the budget, so we'd like to just give it a shot and seed it in the fall. It says in the project here it's 15,000 and change total to do it. I've added to 20,000, and that just would allow us to actually bring Palisade up for a day, because they've overseen these projects, and I would just have them supervise that project to make sure the expenses are right and the application rates are proper, and we would hire a local contractor to do the seeding. So hopefully next year we have this time
They
next
can
year.
seed it with the
Sorry?
size of the mulch, they'll be able to seed.
They're pretty confident that it will be seeded and take quite well. Yeah, and it's literally, they would use an ATV style spreader. So it'll take a couple of days to apply it just because it's a smaller unit, but then it won't rut into, like, take a big rig in there, and it's soft, it'll create ruts, whereas they're figuring just an ATV style unit will see that quite well. And they've done, probably a dozen of these fire guard rehab projects, so they're pretty experienced at it.
Council's wish.
That's a great idea. Minimal cost, we'll have a very good turnaround in terms of whether it worked or not.
Yeah, the rain issues too, we didn't get that information in like March, but we could have probably had some green grass by now, but.
Just a question, last winter, did they, ride on it, like snowmobiles and quads?
Yeah, there was some snowmobile traffic on there, not a lot, but there was some.
And will snowmobile traffic have any impact to this?
I don't believe so. I mean, it's hard to say. I think I'm not an expert at it, so that would be probably, get Murray, or we probably might tell you something different, but I don't know. But I mean, we walked a large portion of that area, spent some time with it out there during the assessment. And it's actually pretty spongy in spots because of the woody debris. So, I mean, I think that, in my mind, creates some pad. So if there is snowmobile traffic on there, it's not going to do as much damage as what we see in, areas where it's hard packed grass and you get a small snow cover. They tend not to go on there until the deep snow because of the terrain right now, because they need a good snowpack. So we didn't see a lot of traffic on there until like midwinter. So, yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to avoid that. So, and we're actually seeing, I biked that just the other day, and there's a couple of areas there where it's already growing in quite well with other species. Of course, we want some of the grasses to kind of take over, and then they figure that we can be able to manage that just that way more than we have at the airport. So once we get some good grass in there and a good solid base, the grass will tighten up that soil. Then we can bring in the batwing, and as we mow it, it'll slowly level out some of those areas as well. So it's gonna be a process, but I think I don't know what any other options other than moving the woody debris is gonna be highly expensive, and they honestly said that would be more harmful by removing it because it'll eventually just decompose and compost and create a soil base. So, and it's native to that landscape, so he said it should be fine.
Yes.
Have we looked into looking for additional funding from FREA for?
Yeah, so FREA has a project that's been announced, and there is a potential, like a high potential that we would get funding for it. Unfortunately, and this is why we've decided to bring this proposal to you, is just to fund it with our existing funds, because we would have to apply now. The proposal is due in September. They won't decide till late into December. Then we have to sign agreements, and then we may be able to seed it by spring. Kind of where we thought, we already have money existing in the budget. Let's just get it done, and there's less kind of hassle trying to comply with all of FREA's stuff ahead of time. So that was just our thought process.
I'm just thinking, if we put the money in there, you feel that we can mold that whole thing? Like, I know a good chunk of it on the hospital, this spring we went through there with quads, I mean, there was 2 or 3 feet of water.
Yeah, there's some areas that are low and soft there for sure. Whether we can mow all that, I can't answer that. I mean, that was just what they wrote in the report that, you know, we should be able to mow with existing equipment. But yeah, that's, you know, I don't have an assessment and a dollar figure to put on to free us, so all I have is $20,000 number.
We could hold off, we could apply for the money, if we got the money, then we could we could get a more detailed study done and maybe potentially do more work other than throwing $20,000 and maybe not getting exactly what we want. That's all.
So, if we're gonna talk to Minister Madhu about our evacuation center, I think we go hard on our evacuation center and not throw anything else in there. I don't know, what does the rest of council think?
Yeah, I agree too, because of the size of that venture. We don't want to lose focus on something else.
I really don't think Minister Madhu is the person to talk to about it, but we can still talk to him about it.
Madam Mayor, just for council, just an update, the engineering tenders closed, last week. We have reviewed them, Mike Knapp from the school division joined me, social media, Todd joined us in that review, and we're currently checking references on the top 2 candidates. So we will have awarded, an engineering firm by the time we speak with the minister. So that is a step toward the project.
Okay. So that's just an information, we don't need a resolution on that, do we?
No, you already made the resolution, we're just following the process.
No, I mean on the fall convention.
To follow up on that? No, we'll proceed just on consensus.
So let's get a
Do you want to make a
really,
motion and then it's official?
yes,
if that's-
okay, let's get a really kick-butt briefing note together for him.
Not a problem.
Sorry, when are they gonna decide whether the fall convention is going forward? Because there was supposed to have been that one in March that was canceled.
That's what the spring one, it was online. I sent out to all of council a meeting to, can't even remember when it was now. But they did their spring not all resolutions, the top resolutions online. And then we just had a leaders caucus here in Fairview. And AUMA and didn't everybody receive the invite for the virtual AUMA?
I believe so.
Because I was scheduled to go to the spring one, but it was canceled like a week before.
So what they have said now is they're gonna have the virtual one with the possibility of one person from council going to in-person one.
So how would we be meeting with the minister here? So
Virtually.
So the meeting is virtual, that's what municipal affairs is saying right now, is the meeting is virtual. So that's one of the other things, is they want to know how many councillors would be joining. So even if the mayor were to say, we had a UMA, I believe that whole process with the minister will be virtual, but that would allow other councillors to join into that meeting.
Yeah,
So it is something they would like to know as well.
the virtual meeting that we had, and I want to say it was in April, it had to be in June, was quite good. But, you know, everybody's service, and it's not just us, it's all over the place. So the service was kind of bad. But you sent in your questions by texting a certain point. And they called upon you to come, to invite you to speak then. So that's how the resolutions went down. But everybody has been sent a virtual invite. And I think you have, Sandra, do you have to sign that virtual invite yourself?
no, it's asking us to let them know how many will be joining.
Well, I'm not talking Meduno, I'm talking AUMA virtual invite. I don't know, but I can find it and send it to you.
It just says I invite you to submit your request to this email address on before August 10th. So we usually do that in the follow-up after the meeting, we would follow up with that. And they just want a number of people.
Yeah, I'm talking about the virtual AUMA event though. I didn't know whether you registered us or.
I will register if I can. I usually do.
Okay, I will talk to you after the meeting.
Sorry, 2020.
So, the next one that we are going to talk about is the donation, for the nonprofit society. It's a request to council.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, you presented the letter is presented on your behalf to council, with the title of Country Club requesting a donation of Billings. I'm assuming they're gonna work on their golf course and some of their cart paths. As this is an asset that could exceed $1,000 in our policy, we require a motion of council to allocate that asset. While we are in conversation with the Director of Operations, we are concerned that some of those buildings may not survive the winter. So what we've asked for here is carte blanche to try to distribute to nonprofits or nonprofits who request this, just to give us the ability to distribute those buildings at this time. There are some uses we want to use on our own, but say parent link comes up and they want for something that just gives us the ability for the nonprofits in the community to distribute.
Okay, so in saying that the golf course is asked for 20 loads, is there enough to supply the golf course?
I'm not sure, Madam Mayor, 20 loads is much better than that number, so. They said they wanted that way, but I didn't hear them all yet.
Oh,
We were given the one.
Yeah.
okay.
So we've been averaging to the airport tenants, we've been averaging 10 to 12 loads max, that includes forestry, so. I think, I'd have to have a look at it, we certainly have reclaimed some millings that were removed from the site, we have reclaimed them back. There's definitely 20 loads there of the reclaimed amount. I think we could conservatively give the same amount we gave the tenants at the airport of 10 loads to start with, and if there's any left over at the end of the year, then we can look at it, but I wouldn't upfront give them that much until we were done our work. The issue with the millings is the longer they sit, they become a lump, and then they're unusable. So,
Yes, and that's what I've spoken to the person that asked for them and said they have to be used this year. And they can't sit there or they become a lump. So.
again, I would be conservative and give them a small amount to start with, and then later if we have leftovers, they can have chance of getting the leftovers. But certainly we give them that much to start with.
So was 10 the top amount?
Yeah, I think 12, so Cam West was one of the requests, and they had said 10 to 12.
Okay, so can we give them 12, split the difference?
Whatever your request is.
I realize this is to go to non-profit societies now, but this was initial request by one ratepayer, so that's why I'm asking ratepayer, one specific non-profit society.
Madam Mayor, 12 is doable. I think we go with.
Terry?
I have two questions. One, like, what plans do you have out there do we have any plans for extending the roads that you built last year to the north? Because we had that full this year. I mean, we were just driving on grass there, right? Could you utilize that for? So you come in, you went to the south.
Not anymore, we're giving them away.
You went to the south, you made it really nice, but then we had helicopters parked all the way north, that they're just driving on the grass, right?
I have heard nothing from the manager of the meeting, so.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know if they.
We built it to the south for the helicopters, right?
Yeah.
So to the north, we had probably 20 or 30 helicopters parked there for probably over a month.
I do not even hear about that.
The other question I have is, don't we have spots along the runway that are required to be built?
No. dugouts are definitely filled with dirt. I wouldn't put milling as a usable product in a dugout. Milling has some inherent value to it. It's good for parking lots, trails, our back alleys, laneways, that type of stuff. I'm sure we can find an abundance of fill. That's one of the things we are getting more and more requests on this place.
That was one of the questions I had, was going north with, like I said, it was probably 20 helicopters there for a little while.
I never heard of that project or even the potential of it. So that's a request from somebody.
No, it's not for me, but I mean, we built it to the south for helicopters last year, and like I say, they were being told to park to the north, well, because of the sheer numbers that were there this summer. It just wouldn't make sense to extend it up there as well. I guess nobody's requesting it, I'm not requesting it.
Approximately how many loads of buildings do you think we have on hand?
Not sure. 60 to 80?
Tom's gonna use some of the back alleys.
I understand, what do you expect the challenge needs to be?
In the 40. That's a lot of guesswork. We can use them all if we find enough spots, but sometimes it's too much. With back alleys especially, because they now inhibit drainage. We won't know until we get into it. Again, the whole intent of donating was just to do a local improvement at the airport. Try and enhance some of those properties. We had gone out and put some millions on our ground properties, and we had created, well, previous management has created some issues, and we had allowed tenants to fix those issues by doing the work themselves. Again, we didn't supply any compaction, no liability, any of that stuff. So. And we did build a roadway, which turned out pretty good.
I'm just thinking the golf course is a pretty major recreational activity here, especially when you have nice weather or lots of rain. The course is in great shape, but it's created issues with car paths and their parking lot. Council has not given much of anything to the golf course over the years, and this will be a great opportunity, I think, to make a huge improvement to that facility at no cost to the town. I would be in favor of having the maximum amount available to go out there.
Yeah, it's hard to get going on every project, so we did have to get a lot of 35 millions, and we did sell a bunch of those too back to the contractor and had some exchange work done where we had sidewalks done in lieu of some of the buildings. I am reaching out to transportation and see if we can get some of the lines of future Highway 35 work that's supposed to be going in, especially around our access, because we are partnering on it. But again, that's a tender item. Transportation usually leaves that with the contractor, so the contractor uses that, and they can put a certain amount back into asphalt. So again, if you have too much, you can't get rid of them quick enough. The millions we got off the Highway 35 project, they started hard enough. We probably lost about a third of them just in the first year, just the surface heat.
So I agree with Boyd that we should donate them to somebody who's going to use them this year and make sure they get used. And if we have 80 loads sitting there, they want 20, maybe we should make it 20. Is that your motion?
25. Just, that was gonna be my next question though, on the potential work that's going through 35. I have no idea what the plans are, but the 33 kilometers that they're doing south of Manic, there's, the last 2 weeks, they've probably, I don't know how deep they go, an inch and a half. There's been lots of millings taken off that highway. So if they're doing the same thing up here, there's gonna be a tremendous amount of millings again.
And the general tendering process with Tech Transportation is those millions go to the contractor specifically. When we did the Highway 35 project, I did request that we take all the millions as part of our partnership with them. So we may get a few more if we request them, but for the most part, if that tender's been already done with transportation, then they're gonna go to the contractor. And the contractor usually wants to sell. I know Canelson's had a big pile of millions in their yard also, and they tend to sell them. There is value to them in the overall process.
Yes, so back up that bus and say it's no cost to the town, it is a huge cost. And it's a huge donation, because they're $19 a ton. So what's your motion?
Be prepared to move that the town provide 25 loads of millings to the golf course.
And they have to remove them themselves.
Yes.
So, Madam Mayor, if, just a process, so we have a recommendation, are we gonna bring all future donations back to council per donation? So our request was to give administration some direct control over the donation of these things. Do you want every donation to come back to council?
I'll amend my motion to allow the balance of the unrequired millings to be distributed to nonprofits at the discretion of administration.
All in favor? Carried.
20 votes?
And now we have live witnesses, so it's,
Tannen's not super big.
Okay,
that's a
so
30-yard index.
that ends our public portion of our council meeting this evening. So thank you for tuning in. And if you submitted questions, we will try to answer them. Not today, but whenever we figure out how we're going to get the questions.